that's related to balancing hormones, and we have to look at the body holistically, not just diagnosing symptoms, like helping couples just for fertility issues. So please start with introducing yourself and your personal history of health.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, Pentia. I'm so excited to be here. The gut in Chinese medicine, it's often referred to as your earth, because it's such a core central point. And when we start healing aspects around that, we see it ripple out to the rest of the body, including hormones and all of that. I've been doing this work for about a decade and doing almost entirely digestive work with mostly women, but also with men. It's a common thing for both. And I got into this journey how I feel many get into this journey with their own health journey with it. And it was, I had ongoing digestive issues for years. And they started off not as digestive issues. They started off as a child with like chronic eczema and other issues, which I now know is also related to digestion. But when I was having these digestive issues, I would go to doctors and go for lab work, and even went for, abdominal ultrasounds, and everything just kept coming back like normal. And I was like, this is not normal. And it was extremely frustrating for me to just be continually giving that. And finally, a doctor said, oh, it must be IBS. And I know now, I was like, oh, okay, I have IBS, but I do know now that what that diagnosis means is that it is a diagnosis of exclusion. It means that we're not seeing anything else, physically wrong with you. So we do need to classify it, and we'll classify it as IBS. And then it wasn't until I went to a naturopathic doctor who actually asked me about my food. And that was the first time in probably a year-long journey of going to doctors that anyone asked me about my food and what I was eating. And I actually thought I was eating healthy. That was the thing. But I had the naturopathic doctor point out a couple of inflammatory pieces I was doing. And she handed me a book called The Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. I don't know if you know that one, Pentia, but I read it cover to cover. I just dove into it, and I was like, I don't know, it woke up something deep within me about ancestral eating and getting back to our roots and core with it. So I read it cover to cover and slowly started implementing different elements of it. And I saw such beautiful healing happen. And then as I learned more and more, I just kept implementing, and my digestive symptoms rapidly decreased very, very quickly from just taking out those inflammatory pieces. And it was so inspiring. I was like, oh my goodness, how is it possible that and I don't know why I didn't think food. You think like the food that's going directly to your belly, not, causing digestive issue. It didn't even occur to me at the time. And I know it doesn't occur to many people initially at first. We're looking for the easy fix or the quick thing to find it. So I decided to go to school, become a holistic nutritionist. I got a diploma in applied holistic nutrition. Even from there, though, I decided to go deeper, and I've gotten, I'm a GAPS certified practitioner, which is gut and psychology syndrome practitioner, directly working and mentoring under Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who created it. So, and all of it is very much founded in this ancestral heating, the foods of our great grandmothers, and using those powerful foods with just strong intention around healing your belly, your beautiful belly that then ripples out to the rest of the body. And I've seen where, as we heal the digestive tract, for me, my skin cleared. Clear skin was not something I'd ever had, even as a child. I saw my PMS symptoms like start to just calm down. I had interstitial cystitis for a couple of years, and that just has completely gone away. So I noticed the ripple that it takes from there. And as I was moving through, learning more and more and more, and this process took years. So now I love when I work with clients, I love shortening that journey for them. So it's like, this doesn't have to be years. Like my journey was years, and that was meant to be my journey. And I'm so grateful for it because it brought me to where I am now, where I support so many people with their digestion. But this is, I'm really excited when I have my programs and my one-on-one work where I can help people get feeling better a lot more quickly than I did, for sure.
So why do you think these digestive issues related to fertility?
Yeah, a lot of hormone balancing happens in our digestive tract. It's so interesting. We think of our digestive tract, our gut, as being this place where food is digested and we absorb vitamins and minerals. And that's definitely a key piece of it. But so much happens, so much magic happens in our beautiful bellies. We see, thyroid hormones get converted from the inactive form to the active form in our gut. Excess estrogen is eliminated out through our guts. So there's so much happens within there that if our digestive tract is imbalanced, that can be imbalanced as well. So that's often why we see these different pieces with this. Serotonin is our feel-good hormone. 95% of that is produced in the gut, and there's a big piece around, I think the stat right now is about 60% of individuals with an IBS diagnosis also have varying degrees of depression and anxiety. And that's a huge number. So when you think about the hormones and the piece, and serotonin is your precursor to melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. Like it's like the ripple. It's like when the symphony, when there's a couple of instruments off key and the rest of the symphony sounds terrible, even though everything else might be working, it definitely throws everything else off.
I totally agree, because I had a client working with her, and she had IBS. I asked her to go and treat this IBS first. And she said, no, I have it for a long time. This is not an issue. But when you see the results from others, how they could improve their health by just removing gut issues, because gut is your brain, right? You will be amazed, because you see that how everything is kind of interacted to each other, and how ignoring one part of your health can actually affect others. And especially with thyroid, because I in FDN, in functional medicine, we learn about the thyroid, how the cause of thyroid is not only the hormones and you have to, by adjusting the hormones, you can just adjust the surface, but going deeper, you can see there are lots of causes for thyroid, and gut is one of them. So that's why so many women right now, they have this problem. But instead of going to their holistic health, they just try to diagnose their own fertility issues, which to me, it's not right. You have to treat yourself first. So go with the fermented food. Why do you feel that a fermented food, what's the benefits, and why do you think it helps for your balancing microbiome?
Yeah, so when it comes to our digestion, we have our microbiome, and I love that more people know what that is. When I first became a nutritionist, over 10 years ago, and we would say microbiome, I would get these blank stares. So I love that more people are, when I'm like, hey, microbiome, does anyone know what that means? And I love that more people are like, yeah. It makes me feel so happy. But, you know, our microbiome is the trillions of, you know, different species of microbes that reside within our digestive tract. Most of this being in the colon, you know, that's kind of like the big microbiome, but it exists all over our body. It's in our, you know, for women, it's in our vaginas, it's in our armpits and our nose. You know, we have microbiomes all over our bodies, but in our gut, we have anywhere from about 3 to 5 pounds worth of microbes. And I get that that sounds weird and gross to, to many who are like, oh my gosh, I have like, you know, and that's bacteria and that's fungus and that's yeasts and viruses and things like that. It's just this whole Amazon eco rainforest, if you want to kind of compare it to something. And when it's in balance, it's beautiful. It's like the rainforest where everything has its purpose and everything is working very harmoniously together. But when it's imbalanced, it can create a lot of gas and bloating and constipation or diarrhea. And then that, like we've talked about, it ripples out to the rest of the body. I've even had clients where they're not really having really strong symptoms, but we're seeing the symptoms of, you know, depression, anxiety, and things like that building up, and we treat the gut and that starts alleviating, you know, so it might not even be super strong symptoms, but it's there and it's speaking to us. You know, our body is often speaking to us. So I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm concerned about my microbiome, so I'm just going to pop a probiotic. Like that's like, you know, the common thing that people like to do. And then they're like, well, I didn't notice any. Whenever people do that, I get 2 responses. Either they didn't notice anything, or they noticed a little bit, but it wasn't a huge shift, or 2, they felt terrible. Like it actually created this storm in their body where everything felt a lot worse. And this is, people are often surprised is when I'm working with my clients, probiotics, like a probiotic supplement, is not something that I recommend right off the bat. And that's why, because I think our bodies are very unique, very different. And I find that when I recommend fermented foods or probiotic foods, and I'm trained specifically for using them, you know, we use different fermented foods for different gut issues and different body issues. And so when you use them with stronger intention, I'm finding where, you know, nature is just smarter than we are. We've learned a lot more about the microbiome and the different species in there, but there's so much that we don't know. So, you know, when you take, you know, a sauerkraut, it's going to have so many more different species of microbes in there than it will be, you know, even a really good probiotic. I think the largest amount of species I've ever seen in a probiotic supplement is about 14 maybe, and that's a really good one. And even then, that's 14 where you could get hundreds in like a sauerkraut or, you know, or something that's fermented properly that way. So I love using fermented foods that way. And I'm finding that when we use fermented foods, we're also able to just listen to the body a little bit more and try something, stop, hold, wait till the body, you know, let's see how the body responds. Can we do more? Can we go less? Can we, you know, I find it's just so much easier to do that. And like I said, nature's just smarter than we are. And the species of microbes in us, often there's some that stay there and they live there, but there's lots that just keep moving through. So it's not about taking a probiotic for a month or 2 and then you're good. We need to consistently keep, you know, nourishing that microbiome. And the health of our microbiome, all of, you know, that Amazon rainforest ecosystem goes hand in hand with the health of our intestinal lining. So if our intestinal lining is inflamed, the microbiome is going to be off balance because that's their home. That's where they hang out. So if that's not a happy place for them, they don't want to hang out. And if the microbiome is, you know, off balance, that they create the health of our intestinal lining. So both of that goes very much hand in hand. So we need to work on both. Yeah, but that's why I love fermented foods. That's why I prefer, and probiotics do have their place. Absolutely. But I often we'll talk about them later in a gut healing protocol.
What's the difference between fermented food and probiotics?
Yeah, so our fermented foods are very ancestral in nature. Our fermented foods are where we've taken, and I'm going to actually describe a difference. pickles that you get from the non-refrigerated aisle of a grocery store, that's not fermented foods for healing. And I like to point that out because everyone's like, oh, I got my jar of Vicks pickles and I'm doing good. And it's no, that actually has vinegar in it. Vinegar causes those cucumbers to sour, not ferment. And so you're not going to get the probiotic benefits. Souring is different than fermenting. So when we're buying fermented foods, we want to make sure that we get them from the refrigerator section of our grocery store. And ones that when you're looking at ingredients, there's no vinegar. Our pickles should have like water, garlic, dill, and some sea salt to prevent the molding. And that's it. There shouldn't be maybe some other spices if the company's gotten fancy. I like to keep it really simple for digestive healing though. But that's, and when that happens, when, our ancestors were fermenting food specifically to preserve food, initially, like that's what they were doing. And because it is a natural preservative. But what happens is that while it's preserving, it's creating this, oh my goodness, so many probiotics in there. And when I'm talking probiotics, if you look at the back of a probiotic supplement, you'll see the big long names, the Acinetobacter, the Saccharomyces boulardii, and things like that. Those are the different species, but there are so many of them besides what's, maybe the couple that are on your probiotics. So we get just more of a variety in our fermented foods. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, that's fine. So what about, you talk about ancestral dieting, which I know because in one aspect, you can categorize people in like protein type or carbohydrate type. And in another aspect, you can refer to their ancestral diet, because you had like limiting carbohydrates totally from your food, your diet, to in FDN perspective is not an answer, because everybody needs carbohydrate, but the percentage or portion that we use is different based on your ancestral diet or if you are protein type, carbohydrate type. So how do you describe this in your view?
Yeah, with ancestral, it's the concept that I love using is that, first it's kind of like the foundation. It's, if you were so inclined, could you grow, raise, harvest, or hunt it? That's like the foundation that goes down for me that I get, when you're in the grocery store, when you're picking your foods, like, could you grow, raise, harvest, or hunt it? That doesn't mean you have to grow it and but could you, if you were so inclined, could you? And so that's kind of the foundation with it. From there, you can actually go deeper in terms of like your own ancestral background. I live in Canada where that's really diluted. Like it's like in terms of, people's ancestral background. So I love personally, rather than getting in your head about like, what's my background? What's my percentage of my cultural heritage? Like figuring that out. I love to settle in more with how does it feel? How does this food feel in your body? A lot of my clients with digestive issues, oftentimes like heavy grains and carbs don't feel good in the initial stages. You're right. Everyone needs carbs. That's our energy. We can't be completely, like we do need pieces of that. Though I have had clients over the years where their digestive tract is so inflamed that even vegetables is irritating. So we sometimes will go go meat only for a period of time while we just let some healing and then slowly start introducing it back in. So for me, it's more about the healing, but I've totally noticed where, I had one client a few years ago where she was from Peru. And she grew up in Peru and she came, and she was here and she was one of my few clients that had zero problems with rice. I usually have in the early stages, rice can feel a little bit like sandpaper and we just back off of it. It's not that we cut it out completely. We just back off a little bit and, go easy on it until the gut is healed more, and then we can have it more. But for her, it didn't affect her at all because her body and her belly just knew what to do with it. She also was preparing her rice in the ancestral ways of soaking it. These are things that I feel like even if you're eating your way, the way of your culture or ancestor, we've gotten away from a lot of those practices that we used to, that our great grandmothers used to do, like fermenting foods, like soaking or spriting our rices and grains and things like that. Like, so there's so many pieces that even if we think we're eating, like I've even watched my grandmother. I come from an Eastern European background. And there's stuff that my grandmother does today that she did not do, like her great grandmother did, or her mother did not do. Like we've modernized things as we come along, and sometimes that can be helpful and easy. Like I am celebrating, crock pots and slow cookers, like they're just amazing. But at this other times, we've eliminated some of these things that we used to take time and love and intention with our food preparing. We've kind of dropped those, and not for a benefit. It's when we soak and sprout and give time for those grains, especially, what happens is we neutralize the anti-nutrients that are in there, allowing it to be more easy to digest, allowing us to absorb more of those vitamins and minerals. Yeah.
So I see you have a website, Heather Woodruff Nutrition. And what do you have there, and how do you help others?
Yeah, I have a great place to get started is that I have a free guide on there, and it's a free remedy guide on heatherwoodruffnutrition.com. And it has some of my favorite remedies for specific gut issues. There's a couple of fermented food recipes on there as well. So that are in there that are really easy. It can seem daunting to make your own fermented foods, but the ones I include on are very, very easy. So that's a really great place to get started, is signing up and getting that free remedy guide in there. I do one-on-one work with my clients. And when I do one-on-one work, I actually sign people up for 3 months is what I do. I don't do one-off appointments. And the reason why is it takes time to heal our beautiful bellies. And it's really lovely when we have time. I have, protocols that I've perfected over the decade of doing this work, but oftentimes we will do them and then pause, like I said, and listen to the body and tweak them according to what's happening with there. So I do one-on-one coaching. And then within the next couple of weeks, I have my Sacred Gut Healing program, my online program, that is taking a lot of my wisdom that I've just gleamed over this decade of doing this work, and what I've seen work and what I've seen not. And I'm putting a lot of that into that online program, and that'll be releasing in a couple of weeks to out in the public. So it's a beautiful way to see what I'm talking about with the foundations of like getting into that grow, raise, harvest, or hunt concept. And then there's different modules on really key healing pieces. There's a module on bone broth and meat stock. There's a module on fermented foods and cooking class. There's cooking classes in there showing you how to make your own, as well as how to buy your own. Because I always kind of recommend starting, there's different steps. We don't need to all jump into suddenly having this pantry full of fermented foods that they've made homemade. That can seem like a lot, but we can start by buying it. So I have a quick buy guide in there about how to, like, exactly the tips, that I have a couple more tips too, but of how I said, like, there should not be vinegar. We should not be getting vinegar, buying our fermented vegetables with vinegar in it. It should be without, so that it's naturally fermented. You buy it from the grocery. So there's a quick buying guide too, so you can get started and then, ease into making them your own. There's there's a gut-brain nourishing, which is, I feel like, is a whole different conversation, but a gut-brain nourishing module in there as well that gets into restoring the connection between our brains and our bellies. So so I have that program, my Sacred Gut Healing program, that's coming out in a couple of weeks.
So do you have any case study of somebody who is struggling with pregnancy? Yeah, who was struggling with pregnancy and they had gut issues and you helped them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's part of, when there's so much hormone stuff, like when I look through a lot of my clients, we look at, I always ask them about when I start working with them about their different hormone symptoms. And a lot of people think that's weird because I am, it's like, I'm here for my digestive tract. Why are you asking me about my periods or fertility, or, if they've struggled like with getting pregnant, if that's been an issue for them. And so it's something that I see often where as we start rebalancing out the gut and we start doing that, the hormones, like we were talking about with different thyroid hormones and excess estrogen and things like that, they start to balance out. Another piece I forgot to mention actually with thyroid hormones is that thyroid issues can be autoimmune. We do know that with like different, Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. And when we have autoimmune, that can be linked to the gut as well. So our immune system, about 75% of our immune system resides within our gut. So when we rebalance that, our body starts relearning what is friend or foe, because somewhere along the way it got confused. It's attacking itself. That's not normal. People think it's like, oh, it's normal for you brought this up earlier, Panthea, when you said like, oh, but that's IBS is normal for me. And it's like, just because something is common for you doesn't mean it's ideal or normal. And I feel like I repeat that phrase a lot that women think it's normal that they only poop like once a week. And it's like, no, that's not ideal. Like that's, it should be every day. If we're not, and that's, I get the wide range of spectrum with women in particular, with whether they're on the more quick digestion with more diarrhea or if they're with more constipation. And in particular with constipation, we can just see, things when we're not having a bowel movement every single day, toxins get reabsorbed and estrogen gets reabsorbed, and hormones that the body was trying to get rid of to rebalance, those get reabsorbed. So as soon as if a client starts working with me and they are like, I'm not having a daily bowel movement, then I will often be like, that's where we start. We need to get that going because you're just not going to feel good until we get that moving and you're releasing everything. And then that's a big piece around balancing the hormones too, because like I said, your body is working really hard to rebalance them. It puts them into your digestive tract, which is one of our detox pathways. And then it sits in there for a couple of days and gets reabsorbed back into it. And even if you're having a daily bowel movement, I often will do beat transit tests with my clients if I suspect slow transit. And sometimes even if you're having a daily bowel movement, and we'll check and see. And I've had clients where like, I go to the bathroom every day. I know I'm good. And then we do it. But their transit time is, 4 or 5 days instead of, so everything, things are moving kind of, but slowly. It's just like everything is kind of backed up. So that's a big piece around, those hormone balancing.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Our
you.
time is up. And if you want to find her, please refer to her Instagram and Facebook page. It's very easy to find her. You just type her name, Heather Woodruff, nutrition.com, or just Heather Woodruff, right? Nutrition should be added, right? So thank you so much for being here. If you have any question, please type it there. We're going to answer your question. Please subscribe to Contact Calhoun Transition channel and order my book Naturally Conceived through Amazon. Thank you